Life.Church created this podcast because we all need healthy conversations with real people. So this podcast is here to help you start real conversations with your life group, friends, and family. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to the You've Heard It Said podcast. This is Jason.
And this is Allie.
And I have a game for us today.
I'm immediately nervous.
I promise you'll like this one. Well, actually.
No.
You probably won't like it.
That means I definitely won't.
But we already invited people to come play, and so you can't back out.
Oh my goodness.
So we invited 2 different people to come onto the podcast and play this game. And we told them that we're going to ask them like their best advice about managing time and money. But I might ask them some more intense questions instead.
I'm so nervous for this.
Okay, so this is going to be fun. And I've got our first guest. She's coming in. Hey, Chandler. How you doing?
Hey.
Hi, Chandler.
Hello.
Chandler actually is the project manager for our podcast. And I just want to say thank you, Chandler. You do such a good job like managing our time well and all the different tasks and the budget for the project. And so I just want to go ahead and get started with this.
Let's do it.
And we're going to talk about how you personally manage your time and money.
Oh, yikes. Okay.
So let's start easy. Talk to me. How much did you watch streaming services last week, like in hours?
Last week was actually a good week for not watching television. So maybe like 20?
20 minutes? Or
20 hours.
20 hours. Okay.
That's sad that that's good.
What would be a bad week? There's no wrong answer.
Probably like double that.
Double that. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it mostly like TV shows, news? Like, what do you watch?
Yeah, it's really bad Netflix, Hulu shows, things
Okay.
like that. That's like my husband's love language is quality time watching television shows.
Yep.
So I end up watching whatever nonsense
Okay.
he wants to watch.
Okay. So kind of similar vein, screen time on your phone. It should probably tell you about how many hours a day. Just go ahead, tell us.
I averaged about 2.5 a day last
So
week.
you watch it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It sends me my update every Sunday.
2.5 hours a day.
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead and just now talk to us about your budget. Like line by line, where are you spending your money? Well, you got a look on your face right now.
I'm like, wow, you really want me to break it down? Well, I mean, how deep are we going here, Jason?
Well, actually, so we also have your husband, Sam, on the line. Can you go ahead and...
You do not.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Oh boy, now I'm nervous.
Should we keep going? I mean,
Oh, I think you've tortured her enough.
I was like, wait.
That's a lot.
So what's going through your mind as we ask you these questions? I mean, you definitely, the color of your face has changed quite a bit.
I was like,
since
if
you
I have to
sat
say out
down, you're
loud-
quite a bit more red.
It almost makes you embarrassed.
Okay.
I mean, so my husband and I actually just started like really focusing on a budget. And I think we've been shocked at the areas that have felt more reckless or careless of like, we spend how much on food? Or
Okay.
But same thing with like, I don't know, watching television. When you quantify it like that,
Right.
you realize, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm thinking like right now as you say that, I don't look at how many hours I spend on like screen time. I know my phone would tell me, but I don't look. And my goodness, I
'Cause
don't
it's
want to
scary.
create a budget for
Yeah.
my TV time.
Right,
But
yeah.
I probably should.
No, that's a good point.
Okay,
I
so
should.
what was the most uncomfortable question of the questions I asked?
Honestly, I think the most uncomfortable for me was that I started by saying last week was a good week for television. And then I said I watched probably 20 hours.
Okay. Why was that uncomfortable?
I think it goes back to that kind of like embarrassment, shame factor of like, I have so many other things I could have or should have.
Why does it create shame or embarrassment?
Because it's not life-giving. And, you know, you have that list of stuff that you want to do and people you want to spend time with. And yet I sat mindlessly staring at a screen for only God knows how long instead of doing any of the things I wanted to pursue or do.
Okay. Thanks for telling us about that.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming on.
Thanks for being a good sport, Chandler.
Oh my
Sorry,
gosh.
it was a little intense, but
No, that's okay. That was more
I'm
painless
not
than I
too sorry.
anticipated, I think.
And our next contestant is Tony Gregory.
Hello.
welcome, Tony.
I'm happy to be here. Don't know what I'm doing, but I'm happy to be here.
All right. Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to thank you. You know, Tony is one of our producers on our team, and he just does a great job of managing time, budgets for projects.
Yeah.
And now, Tony, let's talk about how you manage your personal time.
Ooh,
So
okay.
tell us, how many hours did you spend watching streaming services last week?
Okay, you caught me on the perfect week because yesterday I binge watched a whole show, probably from about 2 p.m. to about 11 p.m.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's not a norm. It was an outlier.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was yesterday. So just on the whole last week, we're talking double digits.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Tell me about your screen time usage on your phone, just average per day.
Per day, about 4 hours.
4 hours. Okay. I don't know if you came prepared for this or not, but go ahead and just start going over your budget line by line. Where do you spend your money?
Budget. Okay.
If you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
see
for
Tony's
sure.
face right
Yeah,
now.
sounds good.
Getting a little red.
Let's see. Mortgage is big. Want to make sure I have a roof over my head. Let's see.
Like how much on your, I'm just kidding.
It's like, yeah. It's like, well, let's just come up with a real plan here.
I am totally messing with you, Tony. But there was a purpose to this.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. How are you feeling right now, Tony?
Feeling great. Feeling a little seen. For sure. That's for sure. Yeah.
What do you mean by scene? Like spell it out for us.
Oh man, I feel like I don't know. I'd be honest, I don't know if I've really thought about how many hours I spend on a streaming service or, what my budget looks like sometimes.
So Tony, one thing I noticed is like when you walked into the recording, you sat down, you're all loose. I mean, you got your hat on, your flannel, and having a good time, smiling. And we start asking you some questions, and like your arms come up, they cross. You sit back in the chair a little bit. Talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, so I just didn't know that that's what we were going to be talking about. So it's a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
It's a little like, oh man, what is the appropriate response to ask right now, and not or to answer and not be judged?
Yeah.
So wanting to protect an image, if you will, maybe.
Right?
Yeah,
Makes sense.
that makes sense.
So did you feel a little uncomfortable?
Yeah, for sure. A little uncomfortable.
Which question made you feel most uncomfortable?
Probably both the streaming one,
Okay.
and then also the budget one.
Okay.
What was uncomfortable about it?
Honestly, I think I automatically went into a comparison of like, how do I compare with a quote unquote national average or what does this best-selling author say I should have done that I've not done yet, or so on and so forth.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tony, for being such a good sport. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now that I'm uncomfortable and that we've made several other people uncomfortable, what was the point of the game?
So I feel like usually we jump into talking about the practical stuff about time and money without considering the mental and emotional factors that are at play. And then it kind of comes off awkward or overly personal, kind of like my game.
Yes.
And these are topics that like we do need to talk about together. And so I just think we've got to find a way to work through all that awkwardness.
Okay, I get that. So basically what you're saying is that we need to spend some more time talking about why money and time make us feel uncomfortable before just springing the topic on people like in life group or in conversation with people.
Or in games.
That too, yes.
And I think like most things, if we don't spend enough time talking about how we think and feel about money and time, then we might not know what we think or feel about it. And then what we end up doing with it is going to lack direction and empathy and passion at best, or it might end up being one of those things that feels chaotic or impulsive or shameful, kind of like Chandler mentioned.
Yeah, kind of like your game. So today's big question is, why is talking about time and money uncomfortable? And what mindsets do we have about them?
And we'll hear from a few different people about this, including our therapist friend, Kay Gackel, an actual financial advisor with a really great financial advisor name, Porter Cunningham, and Pastor Cindy Beal. She's lived through this like hard to believe story that helped her to evolve her mindset about money and stuff.
Let's get to it.
Time and money are two topics that we can never escape. We can't avoid them, right? Our world runs on a clock. We need money to survive. And I think the fact that we can't ever escape it or sort of put it to the side makes it kind of uncomfortable because we have to face it, right? Even if we're not ready to do that. And everyone, every day, is sort of faced with both of these. Whether you're on the spectrum of having a little bit or having a lot, you're affected by it. And time and money are influenced by our beliefs, and then they influence our behaviors. And so because of that, then they also impact the relationships that we have. So because they're influenced by our beliefs, we need to identify what these beliefs are. And most of our beliefs are formed in our childhood. So if in your home, your parents fought a lot about money, or there was a lot of conflict about money, or you felt worried or insecure about having your needs met, or you saw it as a tool to control people, right? Those are some ways that people grew up with money. Or on the other hand, if you got a new toy every time you went to the store, or you ate out for every meal at nicer restaurants, or you were given a gift or spent money on in lieu of a relationship, then all of those things also formed your beliefs and everything in the middle. And the same goes for time. So how was time used in your home? Was it used mostly for production? So work, school, activities? Were you guys always busy, never really home? Or were you home all the time and your parents were gone often? Were you raised in a single parent home and so you missed out on time with that parent or the other parent? Did you have quantity but not necessarily quality? Or did you have quality time? All of these experiences, both negative and positive, shaped our beliefs around time and money. It shaped how we view them. It shaped how we value them. And now we behave out of those. So if you grew up in a home where there was conflict around it, now you might avoid talking about these because it's going to bring up potential conflict, right? If you grew up in a home where you were insecure about your needs being met, well, now you might carry that fear of never having enough. And it may drive your need to be secure. And that fear can also cause some intensity on how time and money are spent, which then plays out in your relationships. Or if you saw that these were being used as a tool for control, or in lieu of a relationship, now you might have a current belief around money and time that would equal worthiness or being lovable. Or you might have seen that time and money equal peace and happiness. That might be some sort of belief that you also gained from your childhood. So once we identify our beliefs and our behaviors from then we can look at our daily life and start to spot patterns that we see these playing out. So more questions, but are there times or moments when you want to spend more money? Are there times or moments when you want to save more money? How does spending feel to you? Does it matter what you're even spending it on? And then going back to the beliefs, what are your biggest fears around money? And then on the positive, what excites you about money? Sort of answering how these play out and the patterns that you recognize. And we can ask similar questions regarding time. So what does it look like for you to feel like you're using your time in a way that you're pleased with? And what does it look like for you to feel stressed about time? What did it look like looking back at your beliefs and your structure in childhood? Does it look the same for you today? And then what are your biggest fears about time? And then what excites you about time, right? We can sort of ask all these questions and start to build a framework, because from there, then we can have honest conversations with the people in our lives about what time and money mean to us. But it really isn't until we sort of identify those beliefs and those behaviors that we can then have the honest conversation. And I think the only way to make this conversation comfortable is to just start doing it. This is a skill. So the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll feel with it, right? I think one thing when we're talking about having these conversations, one thing to think about is that it's important not to assign our beliefs to other people. We don't want to assume that they believe the same or that they should believe the same or that our beliefs are correct. Right? We need to enter those conversations with lots of space and grace for the differences and just navigating that and asking ourselves the questions, but then also allowing the people in our lives to ask the questions for themselves and not to assume that everybody has the same belief. And the last thing I would say is to be intentional. So time and money are two ways you can either really break trust or grow trust in your relationship, any relationship, whether that's with your spouse, your friends, your family, and definitely with God. I had this one couple a few years ago, and they were just talking about any topics in their relationship. Their goal was to make them a bridge and not a wedge. And I really loved that picture because I think it's a way we can really ask, how can time and money in our relationships become something that joins us and not divides us? How can it grow our trust and not break our trust? And the way that we do that is we don't avoid the topic. We face it, even if it's uncomfortable. We identify our own beliefs and the influence that those beliefs have on our behaviors and spot those patterns. And then we have those healthy conversations with the people that matter.
Hi, Hi friends, it's Allie here, and I'm just letting you know that our financial advisor, Porter Cunningham, works for Oklahoma Financial Center. All opinions expressed by Porter are solely his opinions and do not represent the opinions of the Oklahoma Financial Center. This interview is purely for informational purposes and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Oklahoma Financial Center may own securities discussed in this podcast. Now, let's get to our conversation with Porter Cunningham. Well, Porter, welcome to the You've Heard It Said podcast. We're really excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so we've been talking all season about managing our time and money, and we figured why not ask an actual financial advisor about all of this? So before we get into it, I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about you and also what does it mean to be a financial advisor?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Porter Cunningham. I'm a financial advisor with Oklahoma Financial Center. We're a small financial planning firm based here in Oklahoma City. So my mom and dad started the firm. I've been doing it for about 5 years now. And so what we do is we seek to help our individual clients and businesses really get straight in terms of their finances.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So everybody listening is probably coming from a different financial situation, but are there any overall mindsets that are helpful for anybody to have as we think about money?
The easiest thing I can say is, and you're going to hear it a lot, it's all about discipline. So much of finances is discipline, and it doesn't really matter how much money you make. You know, we see the same problems with our multimillionaire clients as we do with clients that don't hardly make any money. So more zeros on the end doesn't always make it better. It's all about how disciplined you are with your philosophies and how you handle that.
That's interesting. So I'm curious then, what are some of the most common reasons you see people stressed out about money?
It's when people feel like they don't have control anymore. So when they feel like they don't know what they're spending their money on, that's a really common question we get is, I make so much money, I just don't know where it all goes.
So when people come in stressed out, what are some ways that financial planning can help with that?
Yeah, so it's all about identifying where you're spending your money. We have a ton of clients who we will just send them out the door with a budget, a paper budget, or give them an app or something to use and say, your homework is to be diligent and write down where you're spending everything. And sometimes it's not pretty, but that's the first step in saying, hey, you know, let's figure out what's going on there. And then that kind of grows and we kind of take that short timeline and then we increase the timeline in terms of financial planning, right? So financial planning can be everything from a budget to, am I going to have enough money to retire at X years old? But we start with the budgeting. Then we move into the longer term timeline, and then we start to talk about the other things: insurance, estate planning, education planning, your children, your next generations, all of the things that kind of grow from that circle.
Good. So are there different ways to plan or to think about budget based on people's different personality types?
Yeah, great question. So if you're a paper-driven person, you want to use a pen, you want to write down, you want to save your receipts, go ahead and do that. If you want to use an Excel spreadsheet of your own design, some of us live in spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. You know, that's my gig. That's how I personally do my budget, is through a spreadsheet that I built. There's a ton of tech out there now, a lot of different apps, a lot of it free to use that can help you with budgeting. And then, of course, there's still the Dave Ramsey envelope method. If you've tried other methods and they haven't worked, the envelope method is probably the easiest way. So the envelope method just says, at the beginning of every month, you put a certain number of actual cash dollars into an envelope. You label that envelope that is what that bucket is allocated for. So for instance, rent, utilities, groceries, you know, dining out, entertainment. And when that envelope is empty, you're done. You don't get to spend any more in that bucket for that month until you replenish it the next month.
Once people have written out all of their expenses, what kind of mindsets or coaching do you find yourself giving most often?
Sure. So I mentioned it earlier. Once you can identify your budget, if the answer is we're spending more money than we should be, the question then becomes, you need to define what your needs and your wants are. Your needs are going to be anything that you have to have to continue living: your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, things that provide for your children. Your wants are going to be the things that you should have some control over in terms of cutting back on if you're spending too much. That's going to be like that entertainment bucket is a big one. Looking at your cable bill, your streaming services. A big thing that people like to talk about in my industry is your coffee. If you're going to stop and get a coffee every day, that's what used to be $5. Now it's closer to $7 or $8 every day. You add that up over time, that's a big deal. I'm not going to sit here and say that you shouldn't have coffee, but maybe you should consider, at least for a short time period, switching off, not going through that drive-through, having something at work that's admittedly not as good, but a lot cheaper, you know? And so that's where we kind of take that conversation, which again can be a really not fun conversation. I think guilt is probably the right word to use. You can feel guilty if you're overspending. And so that's the next step in the conversation. Occasionally, we do have the conversation with clients. Not everyone is in a really bad way financially. And we can have clients that we encourage to spend more money on the now, okay? So there is, I would call it the silent minority, right? Because you never really hear about the people who have a problem with saving too much and trying to break that cycle and say, hey, you know, maybe you need to allocate some money to spend every month on fun stuff.
Wow. What is some of the most common financial advice you find yourself giving people, especially people who are maybe just starting out or are newer to managing their own finances?
A lot of it is going to align with the baby steps from Dave Ramsey. So if you're familiar with Dave Ramsey, it's a great system. If you're not, it's just going to be identifying where you are now, figure out where you are now, create a budget, create a little bit of cushion for yourself, because this is stuff that we don't learn in school. So figuring out budget, get yourself a nice cushion in the form of an emergency savings account. There are some hard and fast rules out there in terms of you should have X amount of dollars or X many months of savings in there. We kind of take it more personally and say, hey, what does your situation look like and how much do you feel like you should have saved? Then identify what your next goals are. Normally, those goals are going to be some sort of retirement planning, because the earlier is better for retirement planning. If there's children in the picture, it's probably going to include some sort of saving for the children, either for higher education, college in the future, or just for them to have. And then after that, it's going to be taking care of debt. So if you have student loans, if you have other debt, what do we do about that? And the order of those things can change depending on the individual. Don't feel like because you're in a specific situation that you're a bad person. These are issues that we see all across the board, no matter how much money you make. Okay, so you have control over your situation. I promise you, you do have more control than you think. You just need to take that control. The answer is not, I need to make more money. One of the questions that I see out there a lot, I don't get it as much, is what can I do as a side gig to make more money? I need to make more money. I need to get a better job that pays more. When the answer most often is not necessarily, maybe you do need to be paid more. Maybe you do need to find a higher paying job or do something on the side. But really take a look internally and say, hey, where's my bottom line? Or what am I spending money on? And is there something that we can control there? Because you have a lot more control over that than your income coming in.
That's good. Cindy Beal, welcome to the You've Heard It Said podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is so fun to be with you, Allie.
Well, I'm excited to be with you as well. So your husband, Pastor Chris Beal, has preached a lot to our church about generosity and finances, which has been great. And then when I was talking to you about this topic, you mentioned that not only do you budget, but you actually have joy about budgeting. I think you actually told me that when you and Chris are maybe having a fight or something, you just talk about budgeting because it makes you just feel closer.
It makes us not fight anymore,
Right. And
like
so,
we are that couple that doesn't fight about money.
Right. I was just kind of astounded at that. And so I wondered if we could start there. Like, tell me how you got to a place in your life where talking about money and budgeting is not just something you do, but like something you enjoy.
Yeah. Well, in the early days, it was not fun because Chris was the spender and I was more of the saver and the planner and all that. When we met, he did not have a good handle on his finances. And so he actually really recognized that was a strength of mine. And so he was like, man, take over, which was kind of cool. But really, we have worked together over the years to get to a place where we're unified, where we do live by a budget. And the budget, contrary to public opinion, is not a bad word. It's actually a very freeing thing.
I love it. Okay. So tell me a little bit about what has influenced your view of money. What kind of mindsets have you had throughout your life to help you get to a place where budgeting feels empowering?
I would say big things in our lives. One of them has nothing to do with money, and it was when our marriage fell apart, and we were on the brink of divorce, and I didn't think we were going to make it. So like 20 years ago, I just assumed I would be a single mom, and I was stirring spaghetti one night, and I was crying because, you know, I was a good girl all through school, friends with everyone. I follow Jesus. I'm doing all the right things. I'm using air quotes here. I'm doing all the right good girl things in the church, and We had been serving as pastors and called into full-time ministry. And I'm like, God, why did you let this happen? I've done all the things. And I just heard him say, remember when you told me you would do anything to bring me glory? And then I just cried. What was happening in that moment was I felt like God was saying, I'm going to use this to help people. I'm going to use it. People are going to glorify me by your actions. And so I didn't know at the time I was going to stay married. I kind of was still up in the air. But now I see it. It's 20 years later. I mean, I've written books. I've shared stories. I've talked with couples. And Chris and I have done so much regarding marriage to try to help people. And now that's what that moment in the stirring the spaghetti, that's what God was saying to me is, I know it hurts, and I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to guide you, and I'm going to comfort you, and I'm going to be there. It was in that moment that I really began to see my life as not my own. And so part of our lives is finances. And if I really see that my life is not my own, I really have to see that everything in my life is not my own. The second thing that was actually monumental was we talked some time ago, Allie, but my house burned down. It was in June of 2013, and we lost everything. We survived. We even got our dog out, which was a blessing, but we lost everything. And people would come up to me and say, oh, what you've gone through is so devastating. And I would think, no, it's not devastating. I'm not devastated. It was a sofa, and it's a chair, and it's dishes, and it is a house, yes. Now, was it inconvenient? Yes. Was it traumatic? Yes. We were asleep in the house when the house caught on fire. So, yes, big things happened that night. But I'll never forget, I was looking out. We were standing on our lot where our burned house was, and I remember looking out and asking God, should I be more devastated? Like, should I be more upset that I've just lost every material possession and every meaningful possession? And I just felt like he spoke to me again, was like, it's okay to enjoy things, just don't love them, and you don't love them. And that was another thing that really helped toward generosity for me was, oh, I have nice things, but they don't have a part of my heart. So we think, and we've heard people say, oh, if a tornado comes, I'm going to make sure that I get all these things. I'm going to get, maybe it's a parent who's saying, I'm going to get a baby picture, or it's someone else says, I'm going to get my trophies, or I'm going to get my favorite shoes or whatever. And I remember having those thoughts. And even on severe weather days, I would have my little box with all the things that like, this is what I'm going to put in the storm shelter. But when your house is on fire, you don't think about anything but your family. I'm just so thankful that the 5 of us have survived and our pup. Nothing else mattered.
Wow. Yeah. So people listening will probably not have their house burned down. Hopefully
Probably
not.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
And so how can we start to shift those mindsets in our lives if we don't have this big event that happens?
That's a good point. And like you said, hopefully nobody will. So what do you do? And for me, being cognizant of what are my patterns? What are my thought patterns? What is it that makes me love getting this new whatever? So it's just paying attention. Those are things I did over the years. And I always was like, I don't want possessions to bring me joy or at least happiness, because that happiness is fleeting. And so I think just recognizing that as followers of Jesus, our lives are not our own. We've been bought with a price. Recognizing that when God gives us things, it's because he's trusting us. When he gives us our talents, are we trustworthy with what he gives us? So it's just a lot of shifting and not being afraid to ask yourself the hard questions and let the people who are in your circle ask you those hard questions. Because if we want to become the best version of ourselves to impact the kingdom of God, we've got to be willing to go through some pain to get there. And also, this is so important just in any area of our lives. Don't be afraid to look back and see your progress. Like people say, well, no, we're going to keep looking forward. We're never looking back. But here's the deal. There's a rear view mirror in our cars for a purpose. We don't want to stare into it because that would cause a lot of problems and accidents and really not be good. We stare through the windshield, but we get to gauge our surroundings and go, oh, look how far we've come. You know, I can say when I was 25, I had a certain mindset, and then at 35, a different one. Like, look how far I've come.
Yeah.
So look at your progress. Keep looking forward. Keep going toward the future, but celebrate where you've come. I think you could probably lump all that together and probably find your way toward a healthier mindset with finances and possessions.
Yeah, that is such wise perspective. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we close out and groups are going to be talking about this, what final advice or encouragement would you give them as they're thinking about how to steward their resources wisely?
I'm going to talk to married couples first, are you unified in where you see your finances? Do you want the same things? Do you want to pursue the same dreams? Find a way to be unified there. If one of you is better than the other at certain things when it comes to budgeting and planning, do that. In our Christian world, where there's a lot of people who think it should always be the man who is leading the finances. And I would say that's great if he's better at it. I just happen to be better at it in our family, but it doesn't mean I boss my husband. We are unified. We work together. That's probably where I would say start there. And then also just, where's your joy come from? This is way deeper than any amount of money. If you really are finding your joy from any possession, any experience that this world offers, just recognize this is not our home. This is not where we will spend eternity. None of this money we have is going with us, but I would just say ultimately look to become the best version of who you are as a follower of Jesus and let that weave itself into every area of your life.
So hearing all this paints a picture in my mind that money and time are like two tools that we can use to carve and form our lives into the shape and image of Jesus.
Exactly. But I think that if we just focus on how to use the tools, then we're also missing a huge part of what God wants to grow in us.
Okay, tell me more.
So we know all the things we're supposed to do, right? Like we're supposed to tithe, we're supposed to be generous. And obedience and generosity 100% grows our faith and it changes our perspective. But if we don't think about the reason behind those things, then we're missing out on this whole other piece of growth.
Right, because like we established last week that how we use our time and our money really goes back to our hearts. So it makes sense that we would need to think about our mindsets and our feelings behind what motivates us of how we use them. And we heard from Kay, from Porter, from Cindy, and I love how just each of them offers a unique perspective on this, but there's so much overlap too, right? So Kay's talking about how taking time to question when we use money and time can be really helpful for building trust with others. And Porter mentioned that we really have to think about what we need versus what we want. And Cindy was talking about how when it comes down to it, our things don't matter that much. Like they just don't last forever. And it's the people we love who matter the most. And that last statement, I think it's like the point of all of our favorite movies and books and sermons. And we just hear it all the time, but I think we need to hear it until it shapes our lives, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. Cindy's story is just crazy to me because I cannot imagine just watching your home burn. But her realization was so powerful. Like she really didn't care about the things that were burning because her people were safe.
And I think like most true things, Jesus actually says something about this. He's just been talking about how we aren't supposed to store up earthly treasure in Matthew 6:21, and instead we should store up treasure in heaven. And then he says this, he says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So what he's doing is he's helping us see the clear connection between our hearts and what we have. So if Cindy is standing there watching her house burn, and the only thing she can think about is stuff, then that would mean that her heart was there, right, in the house. And so if we get too concerned with hoarding things because we think there won't be enough, or if we get concerned with having all the right things because we want to feel or be seen a certain way, then it might be good to stop and try to find out where our heart is. So where is the tool of money or the tool of time leading your heart? Is it shaping you, or is it shaping us to look more or less like Jesus?
That's good. And so that's why this week we wanted to take a deeper look at our motivations behind these things. So it's not just about setting up a budget, although like Porter said, that is very important, and we will give you tools for that in a few weeks. But before we get into that, like this week, spend time thinking about why you approach time and money the way that you do.
Yeah, and all this awareness, all this talking about how we're thinking and we're feeling, it's going to help us as we take the next right step toward having a healthier mindset about time and money. This week, spend some time in your life group or talking with your friends about these questions. Are the mindsets that I have about money and time helping me to become more or less like Christ? And what can I do to shift my mindsets in a way that honors God?
And those can be some sensitive questions, but honestly, that's how relationships grow. So have grace for yourself and for one another as you share. We're even going to provide a short quiz for you that you can take in your life group that you can do by yourself. You can talk about it. And we're going to link to all of this stuff in the conversation guide, which is always in the show notes wherever you're listening. But just remember, spend some time thinking about the why behind your responses. Don't focus on where you think you should be. Just ask God to reveal what mindsets you currently have so that you can start making progress. Hey, if you've made it this far, you're the kind of person who goes the extra mile, and we love that about you. So here's something you can do to keep that up. Don't just listen to this conversation. Talk about what you heard with some people in your life. We'll even provide some questions and resources to help you get started in the conversation guide, which is always linked in the show notes wherever you're listening. Have a great week.